Hey guys, in this video I am going to show you how to set up a basic VCS cluster nodes on RHEL 7 for high availability server environment. In the next video we will show you how to configure VCS clusters to set up the high availability Apache web servers. This is my lab diagram setup on which I am going to show you this demo. I have two RHEL 7.1 OS on both the nodes and installed Veritas Infoscale 7.264-bit on these nodes. This video is a continuation of our Veritas cluster tutorials. In the previous videos, we have explained to you the basics of VCS terminologies, VCS components, VCS concepts, also shown you how to download and install Veritas Infoscale 7.2 on Linux nodes. Links related to these sessions are mentioned in the description. Refer those links, that would be easier for you to understand this session much better. If you feel something I have missed or you wanted to know more about something else on this session, please leave your comments and subscribe our YouTube channel for more updates. And you are watching LandITGuide.net tutorials. What we are going to configure here in this session is, I have a two node on which I have configured all these IPs. One is public IP, the LLT links, and these are my private links, that is heartbeat links. So I am going to configure a cluster IP that is 2.61, which will be accessible to the end users. People who are accessing to reach this 2.61, which is my cluster IP configured on this node 1. If there is a problem with this node, automatically that IP of 2.61 will be failover to the second node. The concept here is the IP, cluster IP. I have not configured any services like Apache or NFS or Samba DNS. I am going to configure a cluster environment only for this IP, not for any services. Just wanted to show you how to set up a basic VCS clusters and how it works, how to manually failover this node IP or cluster packages to other nodes. Prerequisite is two server nodes with RHEL and installed Veritas in 0.2. Refer previous video to see how to download and install it. Also, I have enabled 3 network cards on each nodes and configured the IP as well. Steps involved in this session are to start the initial configuration and add the cluster member nodes and disable IO fencing if not required to prevent the data corruption, and enter the cluster informations and configure the virtual IP for the cluster and secure mode settings and configure SMTP notification and other notifications, and finally we'll test the configuration for failover. This is my first node, freshly installed Veritas Infoscale 7.2, and all the binaries and packages are installed under OPT VRTS, and binaries are installed under this bin. You need to enter the full path of each commands. If you wanted to know something about anything, then you have to enter the full path of each commands. Else you have to include this path on your profile file. I am going to do that now. I am in my home directory. Just open this file. And you have to do the same on your second node as well. Alright, once it is done, either you log out and log in again to this machine and check the command is available or not without entering the full path. If not, just shows your profile. And if you check for these kind of commands, HA status, HACF, HA log, everything will be appeared here because we have included the path in the profile file. Once you have installed Veritas software, we need to configure the initial configuration. That is what I am going to show you now. The initial configuration script is located under OPT VRTS install. Here you could see a file called installer. To start the configuration, you have to run this script along with the option called configure. In the next screen, it will prompt you to enter the list of nodes to be added to this cluster, and by default it has got my information that node 1 and node 2 are my cluster nodes because I have installed it earlier. Alright, if you are going to add some other node names, please enter your node names by separated by space. Alright, node 1 space node 2, enter. It's just performing the verification on both the nodes. So this is the step which asking for us to configure the IO fencing. If you have not configured this IO fencing, what will happen? There could be a syndrome called split brain or jeopardy that will lead you to your data to be corrupted. To avoid this kind of data corruption, we have to use this IO fencing mode to prevent the data corruption. And this is a demo, so I am not going to configure this IO fencing. If you are going to configure this kind of setup on your production environment, and we would recommend you to configure this IO fencing. For now, I am just skipping this IO configuration. I just give N and enter. So already I have a VCS cluster on this environment, so it is asking me to confirm, do you want me to reconfigure the VCS? Here I should give yes. If you are running this installer script the first time and it won't ask you this information, it will straight away will ask you the questions. Now I am just going to configure it again, so I just give yes. Yeah, this is what the initial configuration setup. Press enter to continue. Here you have to provide this information, cluster information. To configure the VCS, you have to enter these information: a unique cluster name, 2 or more NICs per system used for heartbeat links, and cluster ID number. And cluster ID number is a unique one, and you should have 1 or more heartbeat links. So these are the information you have to provide over here. Okay, so now I am going to give a unique cluster name. If you are going to configure only the IP service, or if you are going to configure for some Apache services, then you have to define a cluster name, like assume that Apache. So I just give a unique name, web Apache 1, so it would be easy for us to understand what cluster it is, and also it is useful for us to troubleshoot in case of any issue. So please have a unique name for any cluster names as well as any resources. Alright, here I just give web IP1 because here we are going to set up a cluster only for the IP, so that will get failover to other node, not for any services. So I just give a cluster name as web IP1 and I just give enter. Here now you have to configure the heartbeat links. So there are 4 options. First 3 are you have to give it manually, and the 4th one is automatically, that will detect all your network cards and it will take you to the next screen. Alright, so here I have 3 network card, and I am going to use the first option because I am going to give manually, because I have to define what is my private link, what is my public link. So I am going to configure it manually, so I just go with 1. If you are confident and you know all the network cards clearly and only you have configured 3 network cards, then go for 4th option, automatically it will get selected. Here I am going to give manually, so I just go with 1. So it has discovered the NICs on node 1 and it has found all these network cards 3, 8, 9 and 10. This is the order. Okay, so it is asking me to enter the first private heartbeat link. Okay, so I have configured, and just ignore this 3. This is my NAT network card. Leave that. I have these 3 network cards for my cluster: 8, 9 and 10. 8 is my public link. 9 and 10 are only my heartbeat links, that is private heartbeat links. These are interconnected links between my nodes. So I just give 9 as my first network card. And now you have to give the second network card, second private network card. These are interconnected heartbeat links. Now, would you like to configure the third private hard link? No, I don't have. Only I have 2 heartbeat links. So I just have given all this information. So I just give no here. If you have multiple private links, then you can go ahead. Now, do you want to configure additional low priority heartbeat link? No. Now, are you using the same NIC for private heartbeat links on all the systems? Because it is asking us to confirm the same network interface have been used on second node. Yes, I am having the same name. 9 and 10 are in all my nodes. So I don't have any issue. If some other card is there, then you have to give that no. Then accordingly you can configure your network cards. Here both are same. So I just give yes. Now it is checking network cards: 9 on node 1, 10 on node 1, as well as 9 on node 2, 10 on node 2. Now it is prompting us to enter the unique cluster ID number, and it has randomly selected one number, that is 765. If you are sure it has not been used by any other cluster, then just enter it. If you prefer something to give as 1000, then just enter it, any number. Okay, I just go with the default, that is 765, and it is prompting me to check whether the ID been used by any other clusters or not. I am sure it has not been used by any other clusters, so I just give it no. If you want to check, then go with Y. Simple. I am sure, so I just go with N. Now it is just summary of your information what you have provided. So if the information is correct, just give Y. Cluster name, cluster ID number, and links. Okay, I just give Y. Now the main part, the cluster IP. You should have the cluster IP, that is virtual IP, will be configured on your cluster software, on top of your cluster software, not on your OS layer. Okay, so what will happen if there is a problem with your primary node? This virtual IP will be taken over to the second node using this Veritas cluster software. Automatically that will get failover to your second node. Okay, so do you want to configure the virtual IP? Yes, this is what the requirement of this session. I just go with Y, and it is asking us to enter the virtual IP network card. On which network card you want me to configure this virtual IP, that is public link. Here my public network is 8, because 9 and 10 are my heartbeat links which are interconnected between nodes. It cannot be accessed by end users. The public link is 8. Through this only my users will be able to reach my server. So I just give 8 as my public link. So it is asking me to enter, and it is asking me to ensure being used by all the system. Yes. Now enter the virtual IP address for the cluster. I just give 2.61. This is my virtual IP. So I will give this cluster IP to all my users. I will not give my management IP to all the users. I will give this virtual IP to all my users. So users will be using this IP to reach my servers. Enter, and net mask, let it be the default one. Is this information is correct? Yes. Would you like to configure the VCS cluster in secure mode? Just skip this now. I don't want a secure mode environment because this is my demo. So I just go with N. Secure mode in the sense to give a different options, read permission, write permission to each users, that kind of for management related stuff. I don't want this now, so I just keep this environment. So are you sure that you want to proceed with non-secure installation? Yes. Now you should have a management users to manage your VCS clusters other than normal root users. Okay, root is a normal valid Linux user through which we log into the each servers, but here you should have a additional user to manage your VCS cluster, and by default it has a username as admin and password. Okay, so do you wish to continue the same? Yes. If you want to give prefer or something new name you wanted to give, just go with N and enter the name. Now let it be the default. I just give yes. Do you want to add another users to this cluster? No, I don't want. Is this information is correct? Yes. Now notification part. If there is a problem with these servers or any issue with the events, you want a notification through mail, then configure here. Do you want to configure SMTP notification? I just give no. If you give Y, then you have to enter the SMTP server IP address and credentials, so that if there is a problem on this cluster, then you will get a mail notification. Here I just go with N. Now SNMP notification, again this is also your notification to get the trap messages of your VCS. Here also I just go with N. Now global cluster configuration. Do you want to configure the global cluster options? No, I don't want now. Let it be N, because this is my internal cluster server, not the DCDR concepts. So I just go with N here. Everything is done. Now all VCS processes that are currently running should be stopped. So it is asking us to enter to stop VCS process now. Yes, I give Y. So completely this will get stopped and it will start the VCS newly. So the cluster server startup completed successfully. If you wanted to view the summary file, just give Y. If not, just skip this. I just give no to skip the summary file. That's it. So we have done the basic cluster configuration to have a IP availability. So now we'll do the testing configurations. So there is a command called HStatus to ensure the service of status of each resources and service groups. there is a by default service group, that is cluster service, configured on each node, and this services is online on node 1 and offline on node 2. If there is a problem with node 1, this service group, entire service group, will be failover to the second node. This is what the cluster softwares do. And again, there is one more service group, that is web IP, which we have configured now, and that is online on node 1 and offline on node 2. If there is a problem with service group, that is web IP, this web IP service group will be completely failover to node 2, and we are going to test this configuration, how the failover is happening perfectly or not. Okay, and if you see the IP A, I could see a virtual IP, that is 2.61 on my public link 8, as per the configuration we have provided during the setup. This IP, if you see this IP on the second node, you will not see this IP on the second node, because when there is an issue with this node 1, then this IP will be failover to the second node. This is what the actual clusters do, and we are going to test this configuration now. To check the status of the cluster information, HA status summary. This will give you the clear information of what are the nodes associated with this cluster and what are the service groups available here. Clear? Now, this is my second node. Here I am going to check the status of my cluster. Okay, it is running. If you see the resource virtual IP, I couldn't see the virtual IP 2.61 on this network card, because it is been here, it has been configured as this is my node, secondary node, so it will not be configured now. When there is an issue with the primary node, then only the VCS cluster will automatically take the IP failover to here. Okay, that is what I am going to test now. I am going to down my primary node now. So what will happen? VCS software will check the primary node. If it has not got the information back to this node, automatically the IP will be failover to this node. I am going to do this manually to test our configuration is working properly or not. Just go to your node 1. Let's switch over this service group to other node manually to test the configuration. To switch over the cluster service group, there is a command called HA group. Completely the group service group has to be switched over, not individual resources. You can understand these basics from the beginning. You can just watch our previous videos. HA group -switch cluster services to which node. Here I have only 2 nodes, so I just give the node name 2. If you are having multiple nodes, then you can give the other node, preferred node. Sorry, the cluster service what I have given is wrong. Let me take the cluster service. Yeah, all right, enter. Now if you see the summary of this, resources onlining, which means some process is going on, and on node 2 the process is starting, and on node 1 the cluster service is now offline. Initially it was online. Let us check once again. Yeah, now if you see on node 1 it has been offline, on node 2 it has online. Now if you see the IPA and check 8, and that IP has gone, 2.61 has gone from my node 1. Now go to node 2 and check here. On 8 I could see the IP that is 2.61, which means the IP resource has been completely failover to my second node, which means our cluster configuration is working properly. So our virtual IP, that is our virtual IP what we have configured, as a high availability server environment 2.61 has been moved to node 2. So still end users can reach to this IP in case of any failures with any member nodes. VCS cluster will take care of this switchovers. So this is how we set up and do a configuration of Veritas cluster server. In the next video, we'll show you how to have a high availability cluster environment for Apache Web Server or NFS or DNS for any related configuration for service level. If you find these videos useful, please do appreciate our efforts and hit like button and share with your friends about us. Stay connected with us on social networking sites. And thanks for watching the video of LANetGuide.net tutorials.